Welcome, everybody, to the show. Joining us is our fabulous co-host and fellow traveler, Mr. Dan, the Dan Noodles man, the Daniel Day-Lewis of Wargaming. And as our very special guest this evening is Mr. Bill Kalpak. Bill, thanks for coming by, also known in the Wargaming universe as Molotov Cockatiel Games. And he is a perfect person to talk about digital war games with, because he's done one. We'll talk about that. So with that, Bill, thanks for coming.
So what's happening,
Thank you.
Artie?
Thanks for having me.
What's happening, Artie? You're losing your mind now? You're going into digital war games. What's next?
Hey, I own
5-minute games.
Hold on. I have a bunch of digital work on the computer. Do I have anything mobile? No, I don't think I do. Well, let's talk about that, actually, Bill. You've got, I'll let me pull the share up here. So the game is called Arete, Battles of Alexander, and it's available. I'll throw a link in the chat. And it's available on the Apple Store, but not yet on the Android Store, but that's coming very soon. So tell us about the game a little bit and what it's about. I mean, it's about Alexander, obviously, but be more specific.
Sure. It's it's a tactical game, light, I'd say beer and pretzels, like that end of the spectrum. So when, in the midst of COVID, my wife and I were playing a ton of these hex encounter games and just started tinkering. I was like, hey, I want to make one of these, and sitting on the couch wanting to play them. I wasn't finding any that were like what I was looking for. And I was like, all right, let me see if I can make one, and just kept going and building on it. And so it covers 7 of Alexander's battles, the 4 big ones, and then I'd say 3 smaller ones, if you want to count Caria as a small one. And I was, I wanted to add more. I'm still kind of debating. There's 1 or 2 that I want to add. I don't know if they'd be fun, though. Like, these all seem like, I could make them fun battles. The other ones just seem like too much of a route, or there's like sieges that I don't know if I could modify the rules to make them fun. But yeah, so far it's gotten great feedback. Happy to see people enjoying it. You can play the computer. People have said it's challenging, which is good. I love when people lose, because then it's not too easy. So you can play the computer. You can play a campaign mode that links all 7 together, and you get graded. And you can play online. And I've sort of become a little bit addicted to online, where it's kind of entered my Wordle rotation, playing a couple people, and pretty fun, I think.
Mm-hmm. Good. And it's been out for what, a month or 2?
I think about maybe a month and a half, something like that.
Okay. Dan?
Bill, I just noticed your name. You're from Elava, man.
Tikali,
Kala.
Kala.
I'm a Polikala, man.
Polikala, bravo.
I don't speak Greek either, so.
The rest of this will be in Greek, just so you guys know.
Okay, that's fine. I'll just take a nap right here.
Bill, I got a question. Why did you do it digitally? Where did you get your influence from? Are you a board gamer? And you said,
I can vouch that Bill is in fact a board gamer, a board war gamer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
why did you? That's a good question, though. Why did you choose to do it as a digital game rather than as an analog game?
Is it
so?
I just want to say something. Is it because it's easier, less people to bust your chops? Parara.
That's a definite plus. Cut out the middleman. But so a little background about me. I was an illustrator initially. Like I went to school for graphic design and illustration. As a teenager, I was a big Commodore 64 junkie. That's where I learned to code. We were pre-internet, where if the book you were learning from had a typo, well, you just spend a couple days coding this for nothing, because you're never going to figure out how to fix it. But we sort of learned the hard way. Went to art school. Graphic design or illustration, one of those was kind of my focus. Just out of art school, I started getting published. I was like sending my work into magazines and stuff like that. Just happened to fall into a graphic design job, and that sort of took over. Like, realized I love doing that. Paid better. You could get full-time work. And I think I was better at it. Like, to be honest, like I think I'm an okay illustrator, but better design. And so kept going with that. The internet happened, and lucky for me, like that kind of, even though it was Commodore 64 and BASIC, it rekindled that love of coding. So I got back into coding when the internet boomed, and just kept going. I learned Flash, released an iOS app, like a pretty shitty one, just to see if I could. It was pretty bad. And just kept going with the coding, always doing tutorials and making websites. So I got into web design. I was like freelancing, making people's websites, stuff like that. Eventually fell into user experience, which is what I've been doing for the last 11 years. And still, Microprose, Silent was it Silent Service? That was my jam. I love that game. But I always like tinkered with the gaming, with like coding little games here and there. I spent a ton of time like just doing tutorials. And if I was going to give anyone, any advice, if you want to do this, like eventually you have to break out of that tutorial cycle. I feel like I stayed in it too long, and you learn by doing. Like I read so many books that I completely forgot. The stuff I remember is when I actually had to do something for work or for myself, and I actually had a deadline. And then it was like, shit, I gotta bang this out. That stuff you remember because you're like on Stack Overflow, you're Googling like, why doesn't this work? And then those are stuck in your head forever.
Welcome to the coding experience. You know what is a great cure for the love of coding? Coding.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or Java at least.
Bill, is coding? Oh, actually, Artie, Bill, is coding artistic?
Yes. You can absolutely exhibit creativity when writing code. I mean, I can't. Maybe Bill can, but because I sucked at it.
Oh, and, like I can do web design and I can code what I know. Like I've worked, like I said, I'm a UX designer, and I work with quote unquote real developers that do stuff that just make my head spin. Like I can't. That's on a whole other level. But like tinkering. Basically just do what you know, and that's what I did. Like I know how to use this programming language, I know how to illustrate, and I know how to do graphic design and user experience. So I just put those things together and went with it. To answer your other question, yeah,
you look like you're 22 years old. Where are you getting all this experience?
20? No, I think I'm older than Gary, actually.
We're about the same, roughly the same age, plus or minus a year.
Yeah.
Look,
I just look 29.
Yeah, but it's the Greek face, man. That's what.
In my case, it's the fat. So,
hey, people can't see gray hair if you get rid of your hair. That's all.
That's true. That's true. That's true. However, I look 15 years older if I shave my head. Trust me.
Actually, if you lose weight, you'd look 15 years older because when you're fat,
you're probably right.
Like me, because I look 25. It pushes all the wrinkles out because the fat and the forehead.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Like
so you just, as long as you can conceal your vast forests of nose and ear hair, people will think you're still young.
Always a challenge.
So this is 100% true. In fact, this is true in general tech work in general, right? It's not necessarily that you know everything. It's that you know how to find what you need to know.
And you use
whatever it is you're doing at the time.
And you would use Google to
Google will give you a start. Like Bill mentioned Stack Overflow, which is a great resource for finding answers to why your program is busted and you want to throw the computer out the window.
Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
And also YouTube.
YouTube. That's true.
I mean, you can learn how to be a developer from scratch on YouTube. Like I've done tutorials like on, a rainy Saturday where I learned something, probably forgot it now, but like, make this web app in 2 hours and just go along with it. And it works. Mm-hmm. But with the game, and to go back to Dan's question, like my wife, I have one of the 12 women who Wargames is my wife, thankfully. She's
she
awesome.
She played Fatal Alliances with us at Compass Expo last year, by the way.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What nationality is she?
She's a bunch of different things. Hungarian, Polish, Irish, Scottish. Not Greek.
And we had Brittany in that game too. I will also point out. So we had 2 out of 5 players were female in that particular game.
I don't know why.
That's what I said.
That's fantastic, but it's fantastic.
That's what I said. So, Bill, how do you feel about? I mean, it's been a long time since folks started predicting the doom imminently of analog games in the face of computer games that seemed to satisfy the same itch, but here we are, right?
Yes,
how do you feel about the future of digital war games specifically? I mean, I feel like there's lots of untapped potential, but are we close to starting to realize that potential?
No, I think there's always going to be space for analog gaming. I don't think digital's, it's been around forever. And, despite that I made this game, I still want to play tabletop, give my eyes a break. Like, I look at a computer way too long. So, sometimes I just want to move chits around and sit at a table across from someone. And Brant did from Armchair Dragoons did a great presentation about that very thing. Brant, you've heard of him.
Yeah. Oh, that guy. He keeps sending me emails. Hey, write me this thing. And I keep saying, in what time? What time do I have to write an essay for you, Brant?
Vasily.
Yes.
Now
that's how it's listed in the App Store.
It's funny, Artie, because I can ask. I don't know why I never asked you that, but a game like a board game like a U-Boot that uses an app.
Mm-hmm.
What's the lifespan of that app?
I think that's a great question, actually, because is your board game going to become obsolete because the app is no longer being supported? I have exactly one game that runs on an app, Search for Planet X, which is like a terrific little logic puzzle game, actually. And I haven't played it because I have to update the app, right?
Yeah. It's going to last honestly, that scares me off too. I stay away from the Fantasy Flight stuff where it's app dependent. It's like $100. I will say though, shout out to my iOS inspiration, Christoph Roth, who did an iOS game called Air Scaramouche, also in the App Store and I think Android. And he released his game, I want to say like a year and a half before me. Got popular in Europe, which is great. They had like trophies for his game. But what was great, so his is like that. It's a hybrid. He made this amazing app, but you don't have to buy physical components. It's a print and play. So he shows you how to make like these kind of like square kind of cube from index cards and stuff, how to make these planes. And it's almost like a Red Storm if you had an app handling all the complicated stuff. And so I think that is awesome. And he did an awesome job. The app looks great and you still only pay for the app. So, it's not $100. It's only $10.
For $100, you got to throw a free iPhone in with it.
So basically, the app is only it will only be alive as the company is alive still. Company gone unless they sell it.
Potentially, that's absolutely true. Some stuff may end up getting ported. You might be surprised at the ancient computer games you could get to run on a modern piece of equipment. But you're at a disadvantage if such a thing were to happen. Perfidious Albion mentions they're not dependent on the OS. Absolutely, they are. Here's my OS for the Grand Tactical series. So we just have it in analog form instead. What has disappointed me about a lot of digital war games is we had this idea that that digital war games were going to handle all the bookkeeping and all the other stuff, and we were going to get a lot more detail and all that. And there are examples where that's true, but mostly I've found them, like the actual simulation model, I've generally found to be pretty disappointing, more than anything else, particularly these strategic command games, which in my opinion are turds.
Oh man.
So
I see. I haven't played any of those. Like I've heard, I go from the Micro Pros Commodore 64 games, big gap, to playing iOS games. And Slytherin actually brought me back playing on iOS. That was kind of the first foray, before I even was getting back into physical war games or getting into physical war games. And Slytherin, sadly, was one of those cases where they got bought. Like I had all three of those tank games, and I actually complained in a war game group, and one of the designers or developers, he was like, and he let me know what happened. There was a big turnover, the company changed hands, and it was difficult to port everything over. They managed to port over one of the games. So with iOS games, I tend to be more forgiving, even though I was complaining that day. But it's $10. You're trusting that the developer is gonna update if tomorrow iPhone changes OS and suddenly it doesn't work. You hope that they care enough to go back in and make the updates.
Like you said, it's $10 as opposed to $100.
We're not talking about, and certainly for something like this, or frankly, even this stuff from Slytherin, or whoever does Strategic Command. We're not talking about shovelware where we're just throwing stuff out there and seeing what sticks to the wall, right? These are folks who are serious about curating games, right? So I'd be less concerned about that. But companies go away sometimes too,
right?
So
yeah, I'd feel more confident with Slytherin now. I think they're in good shape, so I don't think you have to worry if you're going to get a Slytherin iOS game now.
Slytherin?
I think that from what I understood, I think so. I think it stayed the same name, just someone bought it or something.
Yeah.
It was 2 years ago. I had this conversation. I don't remember the details.
Yeah, they do some pretty cool stuff. I will absolutely say a lot of it looks a little bit dated, shall we say, but that doesn't mean. It is to companies like Slytherin and Matrix and John Tiller Games, now Wargame Design Studio, I suppose, that I will look to for more serious digital war game experiences, right?
It's funny. There's a Commando Solo 193 says that's why he has Windows 98 virtual machines and he keeps playing the old games. I really enjoyed, who did Close Combat, the first one, digitally? No
idea. Joe Green mentions DOSBox, which is another way to handle that kind of thing. That's basically what DOSBox is. But so what a virtual machine is, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're running, for anybody who doesn't know, a virtual machine is a virtual computer that you are running on your computer. That's the safest way to put it. And it runs like a little separate, isolated computer on your computer, and they are handy for a variety of different things, including running old stuff, because the old computer might have a different OS than your main computer does. I would when I had a Linux machine, I would actually run DOS or Windows, I should say, in a virtual in a VM.
And I've completely forgot what I was going to say.
I don't know either, but thank you, John Stanley, for the support. It is much appreciated, and this is a real benefit of computer games when the developer does not take advantage of the fog of war to cheat instead of developing a decent opponent. So
how's that?
Microsoft. John C. says Microsoft did Close Combat, by the way.
Yeah. I gave him the thumbs up.
And then John Stanley says Atomic Games.
Atomic Games?
It might have been developed by Atomic Games and distributed by Microsoft.
I enjoyed that game, and I don't know why I'm saying this. I'm losing my mind.
What's new?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, in any case, Bill, what are you actually playing right now besides your own game, Arete? I keep wanting to say Arete because that would be Italian.
Yeah. As Dan probably knows, it's Arete is how you have to roll the R in Greek.
Arete. Is it a full roll or is it a tapped R?
It's I guess not a full roll. Arete.
Yeah.
Arete. Okay,
Arete.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And it's actually a common women's name in Greece. So I guess you could compare it to the name Faith, where it's a noun as well as being a name.
Okay.
It's a common name.
But I have friends called Socrates, Euripides, what the hell?
I'm reminded of the famous last words of Socrates when he said, "I drank what?" So
Persephone, Socrates. I mean, I know people call Jesus too and Benito, but what can I tell you?
These are real people, like others can see them.
Man. Absolutely. I even know an Aristotle. I swear to God.
Wow.
No, that's not even that. I mean, I could name Aristotle Onassis. I mean, there's famous people named Aristotle, other than Aristotle.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure to live up to, though.
That's a lot of pressure, man. I want to see a guy called Zeus.
Well, just look to the pro wrestling circuit, Dan. You'll find at least a couple of them. So there you go. The only Hector we put up here is when we Hector Dan. So, So, what are you actually playing right now, though?
Still Cataphract. We're tinkering around with that, and we have Gloomhaven: Jaws of the Lion on the table. The past really 6 months have put a kind of damper on. Like I have gone so like into the coding and then releasing it and stuff, and finding little bugs. I've released the game a month ago, and I released 14 updates since. Pretty sure the people at Apple hate me. Like this guy sending his update again, and I'll find something like a typo in the rules. Like, time for an update. But
right.
I'd be shocked if you're beating any records for iPhone store development. To be honest about that.
And Bill, is this what you do full time?
No, UX full time. So that's my full time job is user experience design. We'll see how it goes. I'd love to like be a full time game designer developer. Still just starting out right now. It's paying for beer and whiskey. It's not going to keep the lights on, but we'll see how it goes.
And it's funny when I think of a designer, I think of an accountant. Is you know what I mean? Dry.
I don't.
No.
But no, I don't. Well, I mean, it could. I think I now see what you're saying. And yes, because you're probably going to end up spending a lot of time noodling mechanics, and unless you're a genius like Mark Herman who can just. So I will tell the WBC story. I didn't tell this on the show last night. So I had sat down for a relatively brief time with Mark Herman and the gentleman who was developing the American Revolution game from the French perspective. And Mark's like, hand me a piece of paper. The guy hands him a piece of paper, and he literally in 2 minutes had completely graphed out the entire game.
What are you talking about?
It was like wizardry. He should have been wearing a big robe with stars and moons on it and stuff. It was amazing.
Like mind map type of chart. What do you?
Yeah, kind of like it, sort of like a matrix where this mechanic goes here, this mechanic goes here, this mechanic goes here, and here's what all the roles are. It's like, but Mark's been doing this a while, so.
Okay, so Artie, does that diminish the genius in Mark having a what do you call them? A script?
That's not a script. That's Mark and his experience and intellect being able to talk to the designer and kind of see all the moving pieces and put it all together. Now, if I were designing a game, hypothetically, I would get completely lost and go back and forth on little fiddly bits of mechanics and stuff like that. And I think, Dan, that's the kind of accounting work you're talking about. What is her problem? The cat's crying back here for no obvious reason. She's probably eating some tape or something.
I mean, Mark Herman, what can be said about Mark Herman that hasn't been said? I mean, sincerely, for God's sake.
No, yeah, exactly. So, and it was awesome to meet Mark in person, finally, right? Since I've known him for some time now, right? So.
I said this before. You clipped his counters before you met him. That's got to be a first.
That's true. I got a great story out of that, and I was authorized by Mark to tell the story. Mr. Herman can have his counters clipped however he likes. So I will be getting mileage out of that for some time.
Treatment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You should have seen the meticulous work I put into this. Mark's counters are nicer than mine, actually, because Mark kind of got this, because I did mine first, and then I kind of edited it, as the case may be, as I was going through Mark's, and his organization's a little better than mine is, actually.
What do you mean, his organization? What are you talking about?
Mark wanted me to clip and organize his counters the same way I did mine for that particular game.
Yeah, it's a scary thing, man.
So, well, I did do a bang-up job on organizing that game.
Yeah, you better have.
Well, yeah, because otherwise it's going to take 5 hours to set the thing up. So I don't want that. I want ease of setup. So that's the whole point. And which is another great segue and virtue of digital games, including even Vassal in many cases, where it completely eliminates the need to spend that time setting up and tearing it down.
Yeah. And I will say, so Vassal I came around on, and your video taught me Vassal.
Awesome.
Thank God for that was a great video. But initially I was like, what the hell is this? Like, I can't figure out anything. But I want to say to all my fellow Mac people out there, if you are just learning Vassal, it's all about the right click. Because Windows, I feel like on Windows, right click is more of a first class citizen, whereas on Mac, we use it where it's a sub menu, it's for extra stuff. But on Vassal, it's like, here's your primary action is like a right click. You're like, what?
Does the mouse for a Mac even have a right click button?
Of course it does.
It didn't used to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I haven't touched a Mac in 10 years. So
you haven't touched a Mac in 10 years. All I am is Mac.
Well, good for you. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just setting foot onto an alien planet with giant tentacled monsters on it if you're not used to it. That's all.
Bill, when you're working with Mac, you're not working on the same type of operating system I'm working on. You're working on it starts with a U, Unix, aren't you?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't get down to that nitty gritty. I use Xcode to just make the wrapper for the game and just release it. I don't get, I do my code, it compiles, and then I put it in the wrapper and it makes an app for me. Essentially, like I don't get down into like the nitty gritty.
So you can buy an Apple off the shelf and run your whatever you're running, do whatever you're doing.
So Xcode is like a development environment for iOS?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Which explains why I haven't seen it. But okay. So you can have like this sort of framework that runs on your computer that will let you put the code together and do little test strips and rerun, debug stuff and things like that. That's what Bill's talking about.
It's like a text editor that does a whole bunch of other stuff. So you type your code in. It has like the autocomplete for you, like a Microsoft Visual Studio or any other those text apps, coding apps. But then it's got all this other stuff that's tied to you releasing an app. So it'll wrap it, it'll compile it for you. It lets you test on your own devices. It has an emulator, and it'll send it to the App Store where you can like enter all the details and just like push it public. So it's actually come a long way. Like it's still kind of a complicated process, and like even I haven't made enough apps to like know. Like I had to find a YouTube video that walked me through it. And when I was doing the Android version, come to find out, Android used to be the easy one, but now, at least for me, maybe because I've never done it before, it was just holy hell, it was complicated. And they changed the rules last November where suddenly they want you to find 20 people to test the app, and then you have to test it for 2 weeks. And I'm like, I thought I was just going to push a button and it was going to be live. And like, no. So that's why it's, taking so long, and I had to figure out their process. It's similar, but not exactly the same, and require more YouTube videos.
What Mac?
Oh, just a MacBook Pro. Yeah.
A lot of people in tech use MacBook Pros. I've seen a lot of that.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you could do a lot on it, right? As long as you're willing to work with it. I mean, it has limitations just like a Windows machine would. It's just they're just different kinds of limitations. So if you learn how to do it on a Mac, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and although like if your thing is games, like now all the frameworks are for cross-platform. So Unity, Unreal, like all those, you can work on whatever you want essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you have an IDE, then it's really, I mean, for development work, you're working it, or coding work anyway, you're working in the IDE, so which is integrated development environment.
I thought it was improvised destruction something.
That's different, but yeah, I mean, you could put that on your Mac or Windows or Linux box or whatever, and lot of people that are technical people will prefer to run something other than Windows, whether it's Mac or Linux or whatever. Will there be a Linux port?
We'll see.
I have no idea how such a thing would be distributed, but
I mean, Android is the next step, and then like I designed this for touch devices specifically, so that's why I said this was like a light beer and pretzels. My inspiration to go back to that question, I'd say, was like Commands and Colors and GMT's Battle of the American Revolution, where the rules are straightforward, and they're intuitive. You get them like. It's still a decent sized rule book in those games, but like it all makes sense and you're like, okay, yeah, I get this. But the thing with those games is once you learn the rules, it has that like depth of like, I forget what, there was an old board game that was like easy to learn, difficult to master. Was that Othello or one of those back in the 80s?
Yeah, I remember the commercials.
That was kind of the goal. And so like Commands and Colors and that Battle of the American Revolutions, which I love, were in the back of my head, and I wanted it to have like minimal fiddliness, because like if you're on a touch device, you might be sitting on the couch, you might be commuting, sitting on the can. So you
all of my best gaming is done from the can.
That's right.
And certainly all of Dan's best gaming is done from the can.
Oh, that goes without saying. Yeah. But I wanted it to be like, if you didn't play this for a couple of months, you could jump right back in and it'll all come back to you, like riding a bicycle, and you could jump back in and just get to the good stuff, but still get that hex encounter experience. So I'm hoping that it's, someone said that it's a good introductory game, and that made me so happy. That's what I'm hoping. I hope that possibly, ideal world, like people who are not war gamers browsing the App Store might be like, oh, I remember these from back in the day, and might kind of pull people into the physical wargaming world. Like, we'll see.
Well, there's some good buzz on it from what I'm hearing so far. So folks ought to check it out. I will. I threw a link into the chat earlier, and I'll throw it in again.
I like this, man. I like this.
So you're going to join us at Origins, hopefully in 2025, Bill. That would be great.
Man,
it looked pretty awesome. I think that is in my future.
That would be fantastic. Well, you and the other 18,000 people.
Bill, with your game, are you going to shop it around? Meaning, are you going to advertise physically going to different cons like Essen?
I'm not. So having never been to Essen, do they even do digital games there?
Oh,
I don't know. I wouldn't assume that at all. But I mean, maybe they do. I have no idea.
There.
Well, yeah, but so what? I mean, board games are different. It's so just like animation in Japan has a different kind of baggage, and it's taken more seriously. That's how they take board games in Germany. Okay, so that it draws a lot of people is not particularly surprising. I think it's bigger than Gen Con, but I have no idea whether they handle digital games at that event or not.
Okay.
Origins, no, not really. Not that there's zero presence, but there's very little.
I don't know if, like, do people set up booths for like iOS games though? Like, I feel like
I've never seen that at Origins. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I do remember when like BioWare would send a team out to exhibit in the exhibit hall at Origins for the original. Sorry, not Origins, Gen Con, for the original Baldur's Gate, which we all thought was extremely exciting at the time. So I don't know that there's a lot of current precedent for like being an exhibitor, but hey, cool. Come on, play some games, right?
Yeah,
so Bill,
that definitely.
So Bill, other than having it on iTunes. I'm sorry. What
Yep.
platform you have? It's iTunes. Okay. How are you going to shop this around? You know,
just the war game community, like the Facebook groups, Twitter. Although Twitter's been kind of a downer lately, but like Blue Sky, Mastodon, like all those.
Tiny bit.
But yeah. But the war game community never ceases to amaze. Like, I joke about like, if you only knew the war game community from being in online groups, you might think like these guys are just all like cranky. What the hell? Then you go to a convention and it's like night and day. Like everyone's so nice, so welcoming. But then even in Facebook groups and online, you start to meet kind of the cool people who love to game and who love to talk design and like, and they're supportive. Like Twitter, when I first joined Twitter, there were people that like, I had no followers, looked like the sketchiest account ever, but like people like Fred Serval, Sebastian Bay, followed me back and like promoted my stick figure at the time stuff. It's just like, who does that? Like the war game community is just like this warm, like strange place where it's like still a little bit of like a Wild West, but like, everyone knows each other and everyone wants to help each other out, or a lot of people want to help each other out. So, so
that's great,
so far,
man.
Yeah.
And Fred,
the great people are always going to in any given community, the great people are always going to outnumber the assholes, but
right.
That might not be obvious because the assholes will talk louder. So,
right, exactly.
And wargaming is the same way. We have a wonderful community, and I see exactly what Bill is trying to say here.
Well, the thing is, Bill, Artie knows quite a hell a lot about war games, and so does Fred. So that's fantastic. So they saw something in your game, man. That let's go.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, but I say going back when I first joined though, if you had seen this thing, it was just like squares and literally stick figures, like a placeholder. And like I look back now and I'm like, it looks like a spam account, but they were nice enough to like follow me
and Fred had interest when you had the stick figures.
He could see the vision, I guess.
That's fantastic.
I think Fred and Sebastian are two guys that love to talk design, and Sebastian teaches design. So those two guys. I'll add Volko too. Surprisingly, like you think Volko is he's like a celebrity, but you could just go talk to Volko online and he gives you like great feedback. Brian Train is another one. Brian Train helped me out of like so many questions where I would ask in the group and like he just gets right to the crux of the problem and he gives me like this awesome feedback and he's like, oh, when I did this game, and gives you like real world examples. Like it's just so great. Such an awesome community.
And Bill, what did that cost you? What did it cost you in terms of money?
Well, we have
it was $100 hourly fee.
No, but I'm just saying if
Mark Herman too. These folks are very generous with their time. We have a lot of that.
Very
in
wargaming. Yeah.
Even people, I mean, I'm going to throw a name out here that you wouldn't necessarily think of an individual that I reached out to for assistance with something. Mark Miller, incredibly generous individual with his time and support, and just an absolutely dynamite experience I had with him.
Revolution Games, right?
GDW. So, Mark's been out of wargaming for decades.
But it doesn't surprise me. I've seen his like other interactions. Like he does seem, he's one of those down to earth, like accessible, easy to talk to. Absolutely.
I mean, even the old timers. I mean, we got our share of cranky people, and let's say people on some spectrum or another might make an appearance from time to time. But generally speaking, we have awesome people in this community.
Imagine grabbing all those people and putting it into a university and charging for that. You'd pay like $50,000 a year.
$50,000? What are you going to some kind of redneck country college or something like that, Dan? I got $85,000 in student loans. I'm 53 years old. So
That's beyond me.
And I went to the Ohio State University. I did not go to Princeton. Okay.
I mean, that should be the next campaign. Like, pay my tuition.
Pay off my student loans. I don't think they'll take. I don't think Fannie Mae will take student Noble Knight store credit, unfortunately. But
that's a shame.
When I went to university, there was a cap on the price you had to pay per year, not per semester, per year, and you could take as many courses as you want. I had 10 courses 1 year because I was in music and a little bands thing. $250.
Wow.
yeah, well, it's one of those places in the modern economic world where costs have spiraled out of control. I don't believe that we are going to solve that particular problem on this show this evening, however. So
is that a modern world thing or another Canada perk?
No, well,
that's true. Who knows? God only knows how it works in Canada. You show up at college, you don't even apply. You just show up at college, start going to the classes, and they hand you a bag of free marijuana. So I believe that's how it works. That's what I was told.
Pay at the booth on your way out.
Yeah.
Man, I'm telling you.
It's like getting on a train. They come collect your ticket after you've been sitting there for 20 minutes.
Best years of my life. $250.
I gotta say, I want to say this show, by the way, definitely needs more Dan musical interludes. We love the music. You're right now. You guys are like Johnny Carson, Ducks, Ed McMahon, and it should be a little Doc Severinsen in there.
You know
that's fair.
Artie, I sent you the email from Rachel. Did you happen to
Yes, I did. I saw it just before the show.
Because Bill, we're just shooting a poop around about taking the CHIT show on the road. But I mean, there's logistics happening here, and for next year,
no ticket.
And, we have some good should I say sponsors or people who are interested in sponsoring us?
Yeah, sure. We'll see if that works. But it's got to be conventions that we can get to too. So both of us can get to. Compass Expo is a good target for that because it's within.
I'm in.
It's within driving distance for both of us, right? And you get to meet Bill, and he can scowl at you. It's great. Oh man, I just thought of something. I just thought, what if we put Bill Thomas and Doc Cummins in the same room together?
As what, musician?
I'm just saying there might I don't know that it matters. I don't know that we need to give them a topic. I mean, we might see something. We might see something happen.
Like a Robert Downey Jr. type thing.
May I don't know. I'm not even going to predict what would happen, but there may be a singularity involved.
Oh man, that would cement our show. Cement it.
There you go. So, we'll have to see if we could try. I don't think we're going to get Doc out to Connecticut, though. And I know we're not getting Bill out to California. So, even though maybe we'll tempt him with the weather. So,
yes, I'm allowed to cross the border, William. For God's sake.
You know what, Dan? I got to tell you that, what about something like Stack Academy, too?
Well, you're going to come down to Stack Academy.
Well, it could have, we're hypothesizing. We're just talking right now, right? I haven't had to write a check yet.
I like that. And the thing is, it's because we're bilingual. The show
whoa. There's no bilingual here, Dan. My language education was in Latin. It's useless. So.
Hey, man. You know what I'm saying? But I'll mention it to Mark, and that could be cool. I
still remember how to ask where the bathroom is if I ever get lost in the corridors of the Vatican, however. So that might be super handy.
The Vatican?
Yeah, where they speak Latin.
Yeah. I took Latin in high school, and that was a pathetic show. I was not good at Latin.
How's your ancient Greek, I should ask?
Yeah, how's your
Greek?
My God. How's your Greek? Vasily, how's your
Greek? I was born in the U.S., so I speak whatever the Greek version of Spanglish is. It's like this combination of is Granglish, or I jump in and out. So I took 6 years. I went to Greek school for 6 years. While all of you had like Boy Scouts and fun stuff, sports, I was going to Greek school. It was brutal.
I did the same thing. I'm Italian. I'm the first generation. What do you think I did? I played soccer.
I'm
you
like,
did both. Jeez.
I'm fourth generation Italian American, so we didn't learn. I learned a couple Italian cuss words, but my grandfather may also have been making them up as he went along. We suspected that.
Few of his own, flowery
I
language.
was a choir boy.
Same.
See?
Yeah.
So in any event,
Dan.
we will continue that conversation, however, because it is a cool idea. If we could swing it to a couple events a year would be cool. Bill, what is the next convention you're going to make? Are you going to make Compass Expo in November, or?
Yeah, definitely.
You're up in that general neck of the woods, as I recall, right? New England?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And SD HISCON the East, we again are going to miss it. Just stuff came up. Wanted to go to that, but yeah, unfortunately can't. Hopefully next year.
The SD HISCON, that's becoming something fierce.
Yeah, it's at the was it the
Naval War College?
Yeah, Naval War
in
College.
Newport, Rhode Island. It sounds awesome. Everybody that went last year says it was awesome. I'll go out to the one in San Diego though. So because I've got 4 months to financially prepare for it. That's how I'm doing that. And if I was going to the one in Newport, Rhode Island, I'd have like a week to and there's no way I could swing that. So, but it sounds awesome.
Yeah, seems great. Newport's great. It's an awesome little town, classic New England. Got the waves crashing, all that. My wife just ran a half marathon there.
Cool.
So I got to just hang around and go to cafes while she ran in the rain.
So
but
where
the
are
town's
you at?
beautiful.
Where are you at, Bill?
We're just south. I grew up in Boston. We're just south of Boston now, like half an hour south of Wayne.
You're not too far away from me. You're like 5 hours away from me, man.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
You're in Montreal, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm an hour west of Montreal.
Okay. My bachelor, we had a bachelorette separate parties, but both in Montreal. It was the last time I went, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
Where you went?
Yeah.
But we're not talking about that here. So don't want to get demonetized again.
I'm telling you, man, you come back a different man.
So yeah, you guys just where you're at. If you're near Boston, you just hop on a train, take it wherever you want to go, up and down the East Coast. So
some cities are a pain though. Like DC has so many fun, like Fort Circle, they have so many fun conventions and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of a pain. Like you either like there's a train, but the trains takes like longer than going to the airport. So it's like might as well just go fly. It's strangely weird, and it's like just too much to drive type of thing. So like some cities are easy, like Montreal's good.
You just reminded me of something my mother would say, because I would say, Ma, you were born under the Mussolini regime, and she would be proud and say, at least the trains ran on time.
Jeez.
That's what they said, but there have been studies, and apparently they weren't really that good at running the trains.
Ran on time.
So,
oh man.
Oh, so but we're going to Necronomicon. That's the other next one.
Okay, yeah.
Not really a gaming one, but Chaosium is there. It's
shocking.
More of a, it's more of a, if you're a Lovecraft fan, which I am.
And that's in Boston or Providence or something like that?
Providence.
Okay, well, Providence. That's the logical place for it.
Yep.
Hey, so
Lovecraft would have hated Boston because there were too many Italians and Irish people there.
Yeah,
so
he's a pleasant individual. Yeah.
Right.
It's very the old ones in Boston. You know what I'm saying? And
I don't know about Boston, but certainly Providence.
You played Arkham Horror?
Oh, I love Arkham Horror.
It's that good, eh? It's really that good.
Yeah, Arkham Horror. Yeah, second edition is that. I like that one. I haven't pulled the trigger on the third edition, but I love that game.
And how hard is it to get someone into something like that, other than the subject?
That's mainstream as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, if you get the modern editions, I think you won't really have. I mean, I would just probably call it. I'm spitballing here. I've never played Arkham Horror in any of its editions, even though I remember the old one from Chaosium originally. And any of the modern editions should be pretty accessible, I would think. They've substantially changed the game from what it was back in 84, whenever the early one came out.
Yeah. Oh, Dan, are you? I wonder if Dan, did you mean the what's the RP Call of Cthulhu? Is that where you?
No, I'm actually talking about Arkham Horror.
All right. Because Call of Cthulhu takes a little more doing. That's a little, especially the. I mean, I know Artie you play, but like the firearm rules and what is it, the chase rules? There was something that was just like
depends on the edition, but
right. Yeah.
I don't know. I've done that kind of thing and it's played in that space enough that it can. Even aside from Call of Cthulhu, I played a decent amount of RuneQuest, so it came pretty natural to me. What's that?
Isn't the same designer Arkham Horror and Cthulhu?
I don't know who the original designer of Arkham Horror was, to be honest.
I'm sure it's Polish, Hungarian, something.
Call of Cthulhu was designed by Sandy Peterson with help from other people.
Arkham Horror was okay.
Yeah, the original Arkham Horror was designed by Charlie Crank, Richard Launius, Sandy Peterson, and Lynn Willis, according to BGG.
Okay.
So, and those are, except maybe Richard Launius, those are all people that were on the inside at Chaosium. This is the original 1987 Arkham Horror. I don't really feel like I'd be happy to be corrected on this. I don't really feel like it's going to be the same game if you go buy a copy now and, you know, a new copy.
Yeah. I mean, now it's just kind of you extinguish monsters, essentially. You go from spot to spot extinguishing monsters and don't let them overrun. It's almost like a little pandemic-like in a way until that ending where the Great One comes out and just.
So is it redundant? Is it redundant?
No, I wouldn't say that. No, I love it. I think it's awesome. It's one of my favorites, actually.
Really, eh? I gotta check it out. Who's the designer of the Fantasy Flight Arkham Horror? Ted something.
I was gonna ask that too. I wonder if one of those guys stayed on for that second and third edition.
All right, so if I look up 2005's Arkham Horror, which is the one from Fantasy Flight, credits on that, again, according to BGG, so it's probably more complicated than this. Richard Launius, Kevin Wilson.
That's it?
That's what BGG says. And I don't own it. I do have the Arkham Horror customizable card game, but I have never played it. It's also supposed to be good. It's current, yeah.
Yeah.
I forget who does it, though.
Call of Cthulhu card game was the previous one, I think. There
have been several Call of Cthulhu card games. Yeah. I mean, back when Magic the Gathering blew the ass out of the entire industry, Chaosium did a Call of Cthulhu collectible card game called Mythos, which I think did well, but then they I might be misremembering the story, but I think they ordered like a second printing and nobody bought the second printing. So they had a warehouse full of it that they had to pulp.
Oh, man.
Next to the Atari ET game.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's a good question here from Mr. Brian Smith. Is there another? Yeah, actually, this is a great question. We've got a couple minutes here. What is your next digital game?
The next one, I'm still working out. I still want to do some stuff with Alexander, I think, just to enhance it. But I think Julius Caesar is probably the next logical step for me, like to stay with that ancients, leader. But that's going to be a ways off. Taking my time. It got intense there for a while, so I'm gonna take a little time and just do my research, reading, and jump back into it. Then.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you don't have a day job, right? So you don't have unlimited time.
Right.
Any plans on making a physical board game?
See, it's kind of wait and see there. I don't know, because I designed it for touch screens. I don't know. Maybe I just need to print it out and see how it works as a physical game. So right now, I don't know. Like right now, I feel like it works great as a iOS game. I think it would work pretty good as a desktop game. So I'm probably going to release on Steam after Android. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And then maybe, I don't know. Like I have to look into printing. That's, I used to work at a printers, but I've never been on the other end printing games. Like I always used to set up the designs and stuff and give them their files. It's going to be interesting if I walk in there trying to get price quotes and stuff. But I hear Blue Panther's great, so they're someone to I'm definitely going to look at.
Oh yeah, but particularly if you have something that's pretty small footprint. They've done some bigger stuff too. You might be surprised, but it'd be worth the investigation. But we don't necessarily want to distract you from continuing the support of the game you've already released either. It sounds like it's still kind of cooking with the Android and eventual Steam release and whatever other updates you got to issue for it. I'm sure the fine folks at Apple will be happy to break it at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it's stable. It's like I released it like bug-free, major bug-free. Although, actually, funny story, I did introduce a bug on the night that I released the game, and if you went to a certain screen, it wouldn't scroll anymore just because I added like one line of code, and I was like, oh, this will look nicer, and then the whole screen wouldn't work. Luckily, it was for an online screen that nobody used, so like released an update quickly that next day, and wasn't too big a deal.
How do you find a mistake like that in code? It looks like it's DOS.
DOS is not a programming language; it's an operating system.
What do I know about computers? For God's sake, stop calling me out.
It's like music, but for nerdier people.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, with bugs, it's like best case is like you get an error and it's a typo, and it's just like basic. If you remember Commodore 64 days, the good bugs are the ones where you had a typo and it tells you on this line you screwed up, and you're like, all right, I fixed it. The not so good bugs are the ones where you don't get a message and stuff just starts acting weird and you don't know where, and you have to like figure out when did this all go awry, and those are the difficult ones. I had one where I was getting an error message, but it happened like every 3 or 4 games, and it was like driving me nuts. And it was like a line of sight thing where if you did ranged fire a lot parallel to the side of the board, it got confused because it was looking for 2 hexes and there wasn't another hex because you were at the edge of the board. And I just ran like 100 games over and over, the computer playing itself, until I finally was like, oh my God, I spent a week on this stupid thing. And
holy cow, I was ready.
Yeah.
Oh, it can be insanely frustrating. I've dealt with it enough to know that it can be insanely frustrating. And,
So
there are tools to help you, like your IDE will have a debugging tool where it'll let you actually basically run the program, but then step through individual lines of code one at a time. But even that, you're not going to catch everything with that kind of thing.
But
the worst bugs are the worst bugs are those where you get no message whatsoever and shit just starts acting weird. Like those are I had a couple of those happen. Luckily, not too many, and I could figure out sort of. A developer I worked with once gave me the best advice. He basically said, you just start commenting out code until you get to the code that's broken. So
that can work.
Yeah,
but the thing, you got to be a bit OCD. You have to be a bit OCD to code, man.
I mean,
yeah.
You're muted.
This is where I sing. Whoa!
Yeah. Hit it, Dan.
Yeah, it's a nice day in Canada. It's a nice
beautiful
day's gone. Bill, I wanted to ask you, have you ever seen the movie Mediterraneo?
No.
All right, that should have fixed it.
It's where
we were just getting the movie reviews.
It's where
very
the
good.
Italians invade a Greek island. You never seen that?
Oh wow! No.
What is this?
Hilarious.
What is this?
Mediterraneo.
Tell me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're gonna see a Greek woman called Vasilisa he'll remember her.
All right.
Plausible. All right, folks. I think we are out of time, so I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I would like to thank Dan for being the punching bag of the show as usual, and especially thanks to Bill for coming out tonight. Bill, whenever you're ready to talk about a new project, we'd be delighted to have you back on, or maybe
Awesome.
for something
Thanks
else
for having
too. It's not like we've never encountered each other before today, so
it's great to come out of the peanut gallery and
absolutely.
now I'll go back into the peanut gallery.
Absolutely. All right, folks, everybody have a great night. We're going to have a very special guest next week, and between now and next week, we'll figure out exactly how special that person is.